love you. Well, what can I say? You know that I do, and that this is just one of those games that we play. So I sing you a new song. Please don't cry anymore. And don't ask for forgiveness, though I don't know just what I'm asking it for.
Stingray in the chat there recognises this song. I wonder whether this song is as well known outside of the UK as it is in the UK, because I think Thompson Twins are from the UK. So let's talk about it in the chat there. Says they're from Sweden, and they, Thompson Twins were popular in Sweden at the time. It often is the case that if a band is big in the UK, they'll probably be big in Europe, but breaking America is often the thing that bands struggle with. So, and obviously, once you've broken America, you've made it. But anyway, that was Thompson Twins, Hold Me Now, the first entry in my top 30 songs of the 1980s. Of course, this is a purely subjective list. This is my personal preferences for the 1980s. And although I think the 80s was a great era for music, it had a lot of innovation, a lot of new sounds. Personally, it's probably my least favourite decade, really, of contemporary music. Maybe, bar 1950s, but 1950s is almost, a bit early to be a fair comparison. As you'll see from this list, there's plenty of artists that I do love from the 1980s, but if there was only one decade of music that I had to abstain from for the rest of my life, it would probably be the 80s. But anyway, there is still plenty of good music to go around in the 1980s. That was Thompson Twins as our first entry. The second entry on our list, number 29, is Xanadu by Olivia Newton-John featuring Electric Light Orchestra, or ELO. This is when ELO had sort of gone into its kind of disco era. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I know that particularly at the time, disco was quite a divisive style of music, and even to this day, I think some people feel disco is a little bit cheesy. But no, I think disco is great. And this is from I haven't actually seen the film Xanadu, but this is the title track from a film that Olivia Newton-John starred in. From what I know, it's quite a weird film. It's like a bit of a weird kind of fantasy disco experience. I don't know. I should probably watch it. But anyway, this is Xanadu by Olivia Newton-John and Electric Light Orchestra. Soyavitu, I think that's how you say your username. Welcome to the chat for the first time. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to other people joining. Joe Man 2867. Thank you for coming along tonight. And we've got plenty of 80s music to listen to get through. see in the chat there, Soy Yavita is saying that I've inspired them to make playlists for each decade. I love the challenge of making playlists like that and having to have strict boundaries such as 30 songs. And it can also, I also find it in the modern age of music with streaming, it's sometimes hard to remember what you like. When you had CDs or vinyls, at least you had them sitting on your bookshelf and you could go over and have a look at them and remember, oh yeah, I used to love listening to that. But with streaming, it's almost like it's hard to remember what you previously liked to listen to. So making playlists is a great way of kind of curating your own music collection. Xanadu by Olivia Newton-John and the Electric Light Orchestra. Number 29 on my list of my top 30 songs of the 1980s. Just having a look at the chat here. Thank you, Coit Elia HS, for joining the chat. Welcome. Darth Rias. Everyone has such weird names today. It's so hard to pronounce them all. But Darth Rias, 100. Hello, welcome to the chat as well. Little Fish 14, welcome to the chat. Little Fish is considering buying a new keyboard. What's a good alternative to Nord that won't break the bank? Well, my first bit of advice would be, if you are remotely interested in being a professional musician, then invest in yourself by getting something like a Nord. It's in the grand scheme of things, the cost will be outweighed by the extra benefit you get from the superior gear. It will just push your career further. But if you are a hobbyist and you don't want to part with that extra £1,000 that it costs to get up to a Nord, Rolands are really good. I used to always use Rolands, and they're what's good about Rolands is they're still professional gear, they're still professional grade equipment, but they're just not quite as expensive as a Nord. So if you can't go for a Nord, go for a Roland. And I'm just gonna have a last little look at the chat. Roy Johnson 490, yes, R.I.P. Olivia Newton-John. She passed away last year, was it? And she couldn't have been that old. Melodia is mentioning Yamaha digital piano. Yeah, Yamaha can be good. The thing is with Yamaha is they're one of those brands that does everything from absolute beginner keyboards up to actual grand pianos. So you don't necessarily want to buy a keyboard just because it says Yamaha on the label. You want to make sure the Yamaha you're getting is a decent sort of semi-professional keyboard at least. The difference with brands like Nord and Roland, particularly Nord, is that they don't cater to non-professionals. So you're going to get a piece of gear which would live up to professional environments and professional standards. And a couple more people in the chat have just arrived. Saffron. Yes, I got into the Beatles more because of your videos, so thank you a lot. Well, getting into the Beatles is something I think can enrich anyone's life. I always found it so funny that I've become known as like a Beatles guy, because I, from the youngest age, was just I wasn't obsessed with the Beatles. They were my only band I listened to, quite literally. I had an MP3 player which only had the Beatles and the Beatles solo careers on it. That's it. So when I started my YouTube channel, I had no plans on it being remotely themed around the Beatles, but because I naturally knew a lot about the Beatles and I would naturally draw on them for examples, it started becoming this running joke, and now here we are. That's kind of my thing. So yeah. Can't complain. I'm afraid the Beatles won't appear on this list, though, on the 1980s. I did consider putting in one of Paul McCartney's solo tracks, and I also considered one of John's tracks, because John's last album, which was released posthumously, came out in the 80s. But for me, the 80s wasn't a good time for the Beatles' solo career. Or actually, I say that, there is a Beatles-esque track in here. There's a track which is 1/5 a Beatles track, but I'll try not to give away too much more than that. But yeah, hang around and you will get 1/5 of a Beatles song. Anyway, enough chatter. Next on the list we have Dear God by XTC. Once again, interested to know if you guys know this one. It might be a song that's only really popular in the UK. I don't know. This XTC, they're mainly known for a song called Making Plans for Nigel. This is their second biggest song. It was quite controversial when it came out because it's quite blatantly an anti-God, Christianity song. Me personally, as someone who was raised Christian, and then by my own sort of development, I kind of came to become disillusioned by it all. When I kind of got old enough to realise, what was kind of going on, I thought, not really sure about this. So for me, this song resonates quite a lot with me. A lot of the things they're talking about are things that went through my mind when I was making those, realizations about whether or not I actually believed in this stuff. But anyway, let's allow XTC to do the talking. This is Dear God, XTC.
People that you made in your image, see them starving on their feet, 'cause they don't get enough to eat from God. Can't believe in you.
Dear God, sorry to disturb you, but I feel that I should be loud and clear. We all need a big reduction in amount of tears. All the people that you made in your image sit around fighting in the street, 'cause they can't make opinions meet about God. I can't believe in you.
Amadeus, welcome to the stream.
Did you make disease and the diamond blue? Did you make mankind after we made you? And the devil too. Dear God, don't know if you noticed, but your name is on a lot of quotes in this book. That's crazy humans wrote it, you should take a look. And all the people that you made in your image still believing that junk is true. Well, I know it ain't so to you. Dear God, I can't believe it. I don't believe it. I won't believe in heaven, hell, no saints, no sinners, no devil as well. The pearly gates, no thorny crown. You're always letting us humans down. The wars you bring, the babes you drown, those lost at sea and never found. And it's the same the whole world round. The earth I see helps to compound. The Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It's your sign is unholy host. And if you're up there, you perceive that my heart's here upon the sea. But there's one thing I don't believe in.
It's you. Dear God.
Dear God, XTC. Yeah, pretty heavy stuff, but I love it. Passionate. Welcome to the chat, Silly Device. Thank you for coming in. Also, a little fun fact about that song. Although it's at the beginning and the end, you've got that little boy singing. On the record, it's actually a girl singing, a young girl. But I guess that was the best way of getting it to sound like a boy, a young boy, but also sounding like a good singer. But anyway, that's XTC. And let's move on to number 27 on my list. Something quite dramatically different. This is The Trooper, Iron Maiden. I'm not a massive metalhead, as you could probably tell from the sort of stuff I talk about in my videos. You know, I'm not against metal music. I like, pick and choose. And this song is great. I often think of this song as a really good running song because I once had this experience where I was like, I don't know if you were into running, let me know if you do this, because maybe this is a really weird thing to do. But sometimes when I'm running and I see other runners around, I kind of, as a way of kind of motivating myself, I tell myself I'm going to overtake that runner. As like a private little race that only I know about, I guess. Anyway, I was running once and I saw this woman running, and I don't think she was out for a run because she seemed to be like fully dressed, like as if she was going to work. But once again, I was like, okay, I'm going to overtake her because it's a bit of motivation. And it took like a mile to catch up with her, even though she didn't even seem to be a runner. But the song that came on just as I was about to overtake her, and I got like a real kind of adrenaline boost from, was this song. So as you'll hear, this is a particularly good running song. Also, yeah, if I'm the only one who does that running thing where I overtake people, then I'm sorry if that seems a bit weird. But I promise it's completely innocent. This is the true good for discovering good music. Kind of want Guitar Hero to come back. It just disappeared so quickly, didn't it? It just died. I reckon 10 years time maybe it will be the new thing. But anyway, that was The Trooper, Iron Maiden, number 27 on my list of my 30 favourite songs of the 1980s. This is song number 26, Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. I feel like most people watching this will know this song, even if you don't know who Joy Division are, you will hopefully recognise this song. This is Joy Division's most famous song. And Joy Division are a band who had a big impact for a band who were only around for a very short amount of time. And tragically, the reason they were only around for a very short amount of time is that their lead singer, who you can see on screen there, he committed suicide because he suffered from epilepsy, which is what this song is actually sort of about. Moments of the lyrics of this song are inspired about his epilepsy, and I think that epilepsy also kind of caused him to be quite depressed and mentally unwell. And really quite tragically, this song was recorded in I think March 1980. It was released in June 1980, and between recording it and it being released, he had killed himself. He'd passed away. So yeah, very much taken too young. We'll be talking about Joy Division a bit more later, because there's a band that the members of Joy Division that were left regrouped about a year later and formed a new band, which we'll be talking about later. But in the meantime, this is Joy Division with Love Will Tear Us Apart. Tragically committed suicide after recording that. Well, not immediately after recording it, but after it had been recorded, but before it was released. And as someone pointed out in the comments, it was basically it was either the day before or a couple of days before the band were due to go on their US tour. So who knows what could have happened if the band were able to continue their journey. But at least this music will live on though. Joy Division. Now we're going to have our recap. So every 5 songs we'll be recapping what we've gone through. So if you're only joining us now and you missed the first few, then this is what you have missed. We started with Hold Me Now, Thompson Twins. Then we had Xanadu by Olivia Newton-John featuring the Electric Light Orchestra. Dear God, XTC, The Trooper, Iron Maiden, and we literally just listened to Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. We're going to work our way through up until what I consider the best song of the 1980s. I'm interested to know if you've got any speculation, any guesses of artists or songs that will appear in this list. Let me know in the chat if you've got any ideas. Just having a look at what you guys have been chatting about. Any guesses, guys? Oh, yeah, Fleetwood Mac or Stevie Nicks? We've got a guess there. I don't think you will be disappointed. They will hopefully be making an appearance. I say hopefully. This is all pre-prepared, but hopefully. Michael Jackson. That's a good guess. Anyone else? Any more metal coming up? I don't think so. Off the top of my head, as I was saying before, we listened to Iron Maiden. I'm very kind of picky and choosy with metal. And of course, there was a lot of good, metal music in the 80s. Metallica had a lot of their most well-known output in the 80s, and the other groups around that era. But, metal is one of those genres, a bit like hip-hop for me, where I love it, and I love listening to it, but it's very much not my favourite style. And because this list is my favourite songs, naturally it trends towards certain styles, namely, rock, maybe like singer-songwriter music, that sort of thing. So that's what we've listened to so far. We'll be checking in again with that list in 5 songs' time. But now let's move on to our next one. And I just mentioned hip-hop, actually. I literally just said about hip-hop. This is a hip-hop song. It's, of course, in the 1980s, hip-hop was only just becoming a thing. The first true hip-hop chart single, really, was Rapper's Delight, which was at the end of the 70s. By the time we get to the 90s, of course, hip-hop had massively just exploded. And would only grow from there. But this is one of the earlier rap artists. This is Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, who were on the same record label as the Sugar Hill Gang, who did Rapper's Delight. It was a sort of a close-knit group. And I love this song. It's funny how there's definitely a style to older rapping. It's a lot slower. And less ambitious with its approach to rhythm, I think. It's still very rhythmic, of course, but they're not trying to get the most intricate flow possible. They're just delivering what they have to say. But this is also an example of quite a early kind of observational song, an observational rap song. Look, not just, Rapper's Delight is quite a fun song. It's not necessarily really saying an awful lot. It's just, a fun time for all. But this song is far more dark and reflective on society. And if you've not heard it, well, this is Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five with The Message. Someone speculating about whether the Police will be on this list. We'll find out.
It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Broken glass everywhere, people pissing on the stage, they just don't care. I can't take the smell, can't take the noise, got no money to move out, I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junkies in the alley with the baseball bat. I tried to get away, but I couldn't get far, cause a man with a tow truck repossessed my car. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Standing on the front stoop, hanging out the window, watching all the cars go by, roaring as the breezes blow. A crazy lady living in a bag, eating out of garbage pails. Used to be a fag hag, such a dance to tango. Skip the life and dango, a zircon princess.
Rad Brains in the chat. You've got some good guesses there for which artists are going to come up later on this list.
The girls back home. She went to the city and got so did it. She had to get a pimp, she couldn't make it on her own. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
My brother's doing fast on my mother's TV. Says she watches too much, it's just not healthy. All my children in the daytime, Dallas at night. Can't even see the game or the Sugar Ray fight. The bill collectors, they ring my phone and scare my wife when I'm not home. Got a bum education, double-digit inflation. Can't take the train to the job, there's a strike at the station. Neon King Kong standing on my back, can't stop to turn around. Broke my sacroiliac, a mid-range migraine, cancer membrane. Sometimes I think I'm going insane, I swear I might hijack a plane. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
See some people speculating about Duran Duran, speculating about Spandau Ballet, Cure, Depeche Mode, all good bands. Jean-Michel Jarre, good band. Prince. We'll find out.
My son said, Daddy, I don't wanna go to school, cause the teacher's a jerk, he must think I'm a fool. And all the kids smoke reefer, I think it'd be cheaper if I just got a job, learn to be a street sweeper. I dance to the beat, shuffle my feet, wear a shirt and tie, and run with the creeps. Cause it's all about money, ain't a damn thing funny. You got to have a con in this land of milk and honey. They pushed that girl in front of the train, took her to the doctor, sewed her arm on the game. Stabbed that man right in his heart, gave him a transplant for a brand new start. I can't walk through the park cause it's crazy after dark. Keep my hand on my gun cause they got me on the run. I feel like an outlaw, broke my last glass jaw. Hear them say, you want some more? Living on a seesaw. Don't push me cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Say what? It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
A child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. God is smiling on you, but he's frowning too, because only God knows what you'll go through. You'll grow in the ghetto, living second rate, and your eyes will sing a song of deep hate. The places you play and where you stay looks like one great big alleyway. You'll admire all the number book takers, thugs, pimps, and pushers, and the big money makers. Driving big cars, spending 20s and 10s, and you wanna grow up to be just like them. Smugglers, scramblers, burglars, gamblers, pickpocket peddlers, even panhandlers. You say I'm cool, I'm no fool, but then you wind up dropping out of high school. Now you're unemployed, all non-void, walking around like your pretty boy Floyd. Turned stick-up kid, but look what you done did. Got sent up for an 8-year bid. Now your manhood is took and you're a make tag. Spend the next 2 years as an undercover fag, being used and abused to serve like hell. Till one day you was found hung dead in a cell. It was plain to see that your life was lost. You was cold and your body swung back and forth. But now your eyes sing the sad, sad song of how you live so fast and die so young. So don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Yo, Mel, you see that girl, man?
Yeah, man.
Yo, that sound like Cowboy, man.
Cool.
Yo, what's up, money?
Yo.
Hey, where's Field and Raheem, man?
Lay upstairs cooling out.
So what's up for the night, y'all?
Yo, we can go down to Fever, man.
Check out Junebug, man.
Hey, yo, you know that girl Betty?
Yeah, man.
My mom's got balls, man.
What?
Yeah.
Message, Grandmaster Flash, one of the earlier examples of hip hop, and number 25 on my list of the 30 best songs of the 1980s. Let's move on now to number 24. I saw mention of the Human League in the chat just a minute ago when people were speculating on what might appear. And here we are right now with the Human League. One of their lesser known songs, perhaps. This is the Lebanon, which is a very politically driven song. I did also consider a few other Human League songs. I think a lot of people maybe only know them for Don't You Love Me Baby, which is, of course, a great song, but also one of those songs that is perhaps a little overplayed, bit of a wedding playlist fodder, and therefore, not necessarily the sort of song you think of as, a peak of the era. But this song is fantastic. I love, one of my favourite moments of the song is the dynamic jump at the beginning. So we start with just this simple bass guitar thing, and then suddenly the whole thing comes in, and it's just such a great moment of impact. So let's have a listen here to The Lebanon by the Human League. Amadeus, I can see you mentioning the Dorian Vamp there. And I think you're right. I think the verse is a move from E minor to A major, which would be the Dorian Vamp, because E minor would be the 1 chord and A major would be the major version of the 4 chord. I think that's what's going on there. Melodia is asking an important question, something that I should have mentioned at the beginning. In these lists I do, I strive to only include one song per artist to keep the thing diversified. If I decide that I would like to have more than one song by an artist, it must be from another album, a different album. But actually, I think this list today is perhaps the only list I've done so far where I've not included any artist more than once. Apart from one exception where somebody featured on another song. You'll see what I mean. But yeah, generally speaking, one entry in the list per artist.
And who will have won when the soldiers have gone from the Lebanon? The Lebanon. The Lebanon. From the Lebanon.
Yeah, Roy in the chat there is saying he's excited for the 1960s list because I'll have to limit myself to only 2 Beatles songs really at most, which is one of the main reasons that I have that rule, because otherwise, in an era like the 60s, the entire list would be like the Beatles, and it wouldn't be that interesting. But that said, I am planning on doing another stream at some point where I count down my top 20 Beatles songs. So at least that will be an opportunity for you to see my preferences across the Beatles. Yeah, so watch out for that. Roy, I see you've just mentioned in the chat that number 1 will be Never Gonna Give You Up, Rick Astley, and I've just realised I've missed the opportunity to Rick Roll your. I'm really gutted about that. I did actually just consider whether there's a way of me changing the presentation now, but it's too late. But that would have been great. Damn. By the way, does anyone here watch Josh Turner on YouTube, who does great cover versions of songs? Because Josh Turner recently. He released a cover of Take Me Home Country Road, John Denver, which is a song that apparently people have been requesting him to record for ages. And the twist is that it's not, even though it's presented as a cover of Country Road, and for the first 30 seconds you might believe it is, when the vocals come in you realise that it's actually Rick Astley. So yeah, it's a very sneaky Rick roll there from Josh Turner. Absolute aside, but if you don't know Josh Turner and you like the videos that I do, I think you'll like Josh Turner. He's a really good interpreter of music and one of the best people on YouTube making cover versions of classic songs. So let's move on now to number 23 on the list, which is an absolute 80s classic, Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds. I think I first found out about this song. I want to know in the chat if you are familiar with the thing I'm about to talk about. But there's an episode of Futurama where it's all about Fry and his dog that he had, and he had his dog back in I don't know if you know Futurama. If you don't, it's about some guy who lived in the year 2000, and then he gets cryogenically frozen by accident, and then he has to live in the year 3000. Anyway, this episode's about his dog that he left behind, and it's quite heartbreaking. And they use this song, and so that's how I was first exposed to that song. Of course, later I watched The Breakfast Club, which this song is well known for being in. If you've not seen The Breakfast Club, absolute gem of a movie. You should definitely watch that. It's one of those films that I didn't watch for a long time, but knew it was a classic. And then when I watched it, I realised why it's a classic. Just having a little. He was the goodest of. Yeah. People have watched that Futurama episode. Oh, it breaks my heart. But anyway. Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds, who are from Scotland. If you didn't know that, Simple Minds are from Scotland. Actually, someone in the chat has just made me realise, Roy, you're right. It's a different episode of Futurama, but it's an equally heartbreaking episode of Futurama because it's about his brother that he left behind. Futurama was just a roller coaster of emotions.
Love strange, so real in the dark. Think of the tender things that we were working on. Slow change may pull us apart. When a life gets into your heart, baby, don't you forget about me. Don't you forget about me. my feeling will win in the end. I won't harm you or touch your defenses. Vanity, insecurity. Don't you forget about me. I'll be alone, dancing, you know it, baby. Going to take you apart. I put us back together at heart, baby. Don't you forget about me. Don't you forget about me. But you won't come by.
I just realised another link to Futurama. I'm not sure if this is actually a thing or coincidence, but one of the main guys in the Breakfast Club, who we actually just saw on a little TV screen in this music video, he was called Bender, and that's obviously the name of the robot in Futurama. I wonder if that's a link or just a coincidence.
Or will you walk away? Will you walk away? Come on, call my name. Will you
Amadeus, you just watched my video about when did rock stop being pop. That's a throwback, that one. That's 4 years ago, maybe that. Don't You Forget About Me, Simple Minds, number 23 on my list of the top 30 songs of the 1980s. We were just chatting about how it was used in an episode of Futurama, and I wrongly said it was the episode with the dog because I remembered that episode was really heartbreaking. It was actually the episode about his brother, which is actually, on reflection, even more heartbreaking. Yeah, Futurama, who knew? There was speculation earlier about whether Stevie Nicks would be making an appearance, and here she is. Edge of 17. I was first introduced to this song because of one of the greatest movies of all time, School of Rock, in the scene where the head teacher gets a bit drunk and dances on the table. It's a great song, and people have often compared the guitar at the beginning of the song, which you're about to hear, with the guitar in Eye of the Tiger by Survivor from the film Rocky, because they're very similar. It's that sort of driving eighth notes on a single tonic note, digga 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 digga, like that. And this song, Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks, came out before Survivor's Eye of the Tiger. So if it was inspired, it was that way round. It was Eye of the Tiger that was drawing from Edge of 17. Also, Edge of 17 was sampled for Bootylicious by Destiny's Child. Let's have a listen.
Just like the white-winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Just like the white-winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, baby, ooh, say ooh. And the days go by like a strand in the wind, in the web that is my own. I begin again. Said to my friend, baby, nothing else matters.
You see in the chat, Roy Johnson is saying that Ed Sheeran said that he would quit music if he loses this current Marvin Gaye lawsuit. Which, if that's true, that's wild. I imagine he's probably joking. But I'm not a massive fan of Ed Sheeran's music by any measure, but I am. I have a lot of respect for Ed Sheeran as a musician. I think he's very talented, and he doesn't deserve all of these lawsuits at all. He's not really ripping anyone off. Really, if he's ripping people off, then the Beatles rip people off, and I've made a video about that before. But the difference is the Beatles didn't spend half of their career in court.
Changes color, but the sea does not change. Slow with the slow, graceful flow of age. I went forth with an angel.
Yeah, George Harrison did wind up in court quite a lot. That was the exception.
On the edge of 17. Just like the wide-winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, baby, ooh, said ooh. Just like the wide-winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, baby, ooh, said ooh. Well, then suddenly there was no one left standing in the hall. Yeah, and a flood of tears that no one really ever heard fall at all.
The Cortelia HS is saying about how long Marvin Gaye's estate can claim copyright over Marvin Gaye's music. Nowadays, it's pretty universalized. Historically, it did change. It was a bit different in different places, part of the world. But generally speaking, nowadays it's 70 years after the death of the composer. So Marvin Gaye died. I don't know off the top of my head exactly when he died, but let's say he died, 1980. I don't know for sure. But if he did die in 1980, then that would mean it would be 2050 that his music would be out of copyright, and that would assume that there were no co-writers also on the track who were still alive or had died later. So in this actual example of the Ed Sheeran case, the current lawsuit is actually not to do with Marvin Gaye. It's to do with Ed Townsend, who was the co-writer. So it would be more about when he died and the 70-year span after his death. So yeah, someone's saying in the chat 1984 is when Marvin Gaye died. So it would be 2054 that his music would enter the public domain, assuming that there were no co-writers on it who had died at a later date, or assuming that the laws hadn't been changed by them, which they might be, because this stuff happens. Like previously, although you had the 70 years after death for the copyright of the composition, the song, previously it was only 50 years after publication for the copyright of the recording. So imagine that you were an artist, I don't know, let's say Ariana Grande, who, as far as I'm aware, doesn't write her songs. I don't know whether she's credited, but imagine you were a singer who wasn't credited as a singer on the song you release. You wouldn't be entitled to the copyright of the composition. You'd only be entitled to the copyright of the recording, which is a different copyright. But what I was saying is previously the copyright of the recording existed for 50 years after the song was released, and then about 10 years ago it got extended to 70 years after the song was released, mainly because you now had all of these aging rock stars who were getting to a point where they didn't want to suddenly see all of their revenue dry up for the music that they released, a lifetime ago. the ethics and technicalities of copyright is definitely something that is a bit up in the air. The bottom line is, though, that copyright definitely should exist. It's essential. Otherwise, there would be no way of making any money from music, because the moment you release the song, anyone else could just steal it and make money from it, and there'd be no way of you doing anything about it. But the current way that copyright is being used is not really in the spirit of what the whole thing is about. For more information on that, check out my latest video. But anyway, that was Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks. I'm interested to know whether you guys know this artist, Suzanne Vega. I think she's probably most well known for a song she did called Tom's Diner, which was originally an a cappella and then got remixed into a kind of a more of a dance sort of version a bit later on by a group called DNA. And interestingly, with Tom's Diner, because it's a cappella, it was used in the development of the MP3 format, because the engineers who were developing the MP3, one of their main priorities is that the compression of an MP3 wouldn't distort or manipulate the sound of a human voice. So they wanted a cappella recording they could use to kind of test different compression algorithms on, and they went with Tom's Diner, Suzanne Vega. But this isn't Tom's Diner. This is Luca, which is a different song by Suzanne Vega, and it's written about. I don't know if it's a true story, but the lyrics of the story tell of a child called Luca who lives upstairs from Suzanne Vega and is hit, domestically abused by their parents, and the song is all about that experience and trying to hide it from people. That is happening. Also, one last little fact I have about the artist Suzanne Vega. Sorry, I was just distracted by something in the chat. No, Charlie the Explorer. Well, first of all, welcome Charlie the Explorer to the chat. Bohemian Rhapsody came out, 1975. But Queen were still very much operational in the 80s, so they will very much be in this list. I'll give you that now. Queen are in this list. But anyway, my last little Suzanne Vega fact was that Vincent Vega, the guy that John Travolta plays in Pulp Fiction, the film, he gets his name, Vincent Vega, from Suzanne Vega, because Quentin Tarantino liked the name Suzanne Vega, so he decided to reuse it for Vincent. Anyway, that's enough chatter. This is Luca by Suzanne Vega.
My name is Luca. I live on the second floor. I live upstairs from you. Yes, I think you've seen me before. If you hear something late at night, some kind of trouble, some kind of fight, just don't ask me what it was. Just don't ask me what it was. Just don't ask me what it was. I think it's 'cause I'm clumsy. I try not to talk too loud. Maybe it's because I'm crazy. I try not to act too proud. Only hit till you cry. After that, you don't ask why. You just don't argue anymore. Just don't argue anymore. Just don't argue anymore. Yes, I think I'm okay. Walked into the door again. If you ask I'll say it's not your business anyway. I guess I'd like to be alone with nothing broken, nothing thrown. Just don't ask me.
Floating T is saying that there is a parody version of the song called Puka. Who is that by? Yeah, I've not heard that. I can't say.
I live on the second floor. I live upstairs from you. Yes,
Charlie
I
the
think
Explorer,
you've seen me
you
before.
might be onto something there with what you're saying in the chat.
If you hear something late at night, some kind of troublesome kind of fight, just don't ask me what it was. Just don't ask me what it was. Just don't ask me what it was. And they only hit until you cry. After that, you don't ask why. You just don't argue anymore. Just don't argue anymore. You just don't argue anymore.
Luca by Suzanne Vega. Great artist. And I think quite unique subject matter, that song. I can't think of another song about that topic. But anyway, I think that takes us on to, the next summary, the next recap. That's the word. If you've only just joined us, or you've joined us in the last, you've not been here for the whole hour we've been doing this now. Here are the songs you missed. We had Hold Me Now, Thompson Twins, Xanadu, Olivia Newton-John, Dear God, XTC, The Trooper, Iron Maiden, Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division, The Message by Grandmaster Flash, Don't You Forget About Me, Simple Minds, The Lebanon, The Human League, Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks, and we just listened to Luca Suzanne Vega. We're 1/3 of the way through, and of course, by the very nature of this list of the top 30 songs of the 1980s, I hope that we are now going to be getting better and better with all of the songs. Of course, all of these songs are songs I love, but as we progress, we'll be getting into songs that I consider to be some of the best songs, not only of the 1980s, but of all time. Although, that said, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the 1980s is one of my less favourite eras. It's the decade that I have the least. If you made a list of all my favourite songs ever, which trust me I've done, the decade that comes up the least often, apart from the 1950s or anything prior to that, is the 1980s. The decade that comes up the most often is the 1970s. So next week's stream is going to be tough. I've already been working on the playlist, and getting it down to 30 is difficult because there's so many artists and so many songs in the 1970s that I love so much. And that's not to mention the fact that I'm trying to keep it down to one per artist. But anyway, that's next week. Here we are in the 1980s, and here is number 20 on my list. We had Stevie Nicks. Now we have a bit more Stevie Nicks, but along with her friends in Fleetwood Mac. This is from Fleetwood Mac's Tango in the Night album, which was their big album of the 1980s. In the 70s, they had Rumours, which is absolute classic album. And in the 80s, they had Tango in the Night. They came back 10 years later and just had another smasher album full of classic songs. This is certainly one of the more well-known songs from the album, but not the most well-known song from the album. But I love this song. I think it's got a great sound to it. It reminds me a little bit of the song Tusk by Fleetwood Mac, which I really love as well. But anyway, this is Big Love, Fleetwood Mac, with Lindsey Buckingham on lead. Did a whole new thing with under the same name, still Fleetwood Mac. And they, as I said, they started as like a British blues rock band, and they became effectively an American band. Really interesting story about how one band went on quite a journey with different sounds, different members, and really, in All Rights are two different bands, at least two, if not three, when you look at the different sounds they had. But anyway, that is Big Love, Fleetwood Mac. Now, this is perhaps the least well-known song on this list. I'm really intrigued to know whether anybody has heard of this song. I think if anybody has heard of this song, it will be because of the cover version, which was done by, it's on the tip of my tongue, and my tongue has gone blank. I'll be right back with that. But this song was covered by a female artist whose name has completely escaped me right now. Kirsty MacColl, the same female singer that's on Fairy Tale of New York by the Pogues, the classic Christmas song. She did a cover of this song, which I think was effectively more commercially successful than the Billy Bragg original. Billy Bragg is a really interesting artist. He is a folk but slightly punk artist from the 80s. Very political, but this song isn't heavily political. It's more of a sort of coming of age song. I love this song, and this is a song that when I first got into sort of performing on stage and singing, I sang this on stage a few times. Also, fun fact, the opening line of this song, I was 21 years when I wrote this song, I'm 22 now, but it won't be for long, is directly lifted from a Paul Simon song, Simon and Garfunkel. Anyway, this is A New England by Billy Bragg.
I was 21 years when I wrote this song. I'm 22 now, but I won't be for long. People ask me when will you grow up to be a man, but all the girls I loved at school are already pushing prams.
Terrace and Amita?
I loved you then.
Mentioning
as
Billy
I
Bragg's
love
work
you
he did with
still.
Wilco,
Though
which is
I put
great.
you on a pedestal, they put you on the pill. I don't feel bad about letting you go. I just feel sad about letting you know. I don't want to change the world. I'm not looking for a New England. I'm just looking for another girl. I don't want to change the world. I'm not looking for a New England. I'm just looking for another girl.
The Celtic Delta, it might be the cover version of this
you
better.
wrote to me, but that was bloody yesterday. I can't survive on what you send every time you need a friend. I saw two shooting stars last night, I wished on them, but they were only satellites. It's wrong to wish on space hardware. I wish you'd care. I don't want to change the world. I'm not looking for New England. I'm just looking for another girl. I don't want to change the world. I'm not looking for New England. I'm just looking for another girl. Looking for another girl.
I can see somebody asking what accent it is. It's not a Cockney accent, really. It's a Billy Bragg's from Essex, which is in the south of England, not too far from London. A lot of people describe Essex as the New Jersey of the UK. And Try Porous, thank you so much for subscribing using Amazon Prime. In case you didn't know, if you are an Amazon Prime customer, subscriber, you can subscribe using Amazon Prime to me on Twitch here at no additional cost to you. And in case you don't know what subscribing on Twitch actually means, because it's a bit different from YouTube, subscribing on Twitch is effectively like pledging a small amount of money a month to me, and in return you get a few perks, including not watching adverts when you first start the stream, that sort of thing. But as I said, if you have Amazon Prime, you don't have to pay anything, but I actually get some money. So if you want to do that, then that's cool. Yeah, that is Billy Bragg. The more famous version of that song is probably Kirsty MacColl's version. And I know actually that Kirsty MacColl changed a couple of the lyrics in it to make it suit her more as a woman singing it. And when Kirsty MacColl tragically died, I think in a speedboat accident or something just really unfortunate and awful. Since that, Billy Bragg, whenever he sings this song live, he sings Kirsty's version of the lyrics as a little tribute to her. But yeah, New England, Billy Bragg. Also, something I really like about Billy Bragg is that he plays his electric guitar like an acoustic guitar, because he's a folk singer, really. He's channeling people like Bob Dylan, who were known for their acoustic guitar playing. And of course, Bob Dylan did then move on to electric guitars. But Billy Bragg here, I think by default you would imagine him on an acoustic guitar, but he's got that like kind of almost punky edge to him where he's instead on an electric guitar. Let's move on. People were speculating about Kate Bush earlier. I am a big fan of this song, and I have been a big fan of this song for a long time. I'm not one of those people who only knows this song because of Stranger Things, but I do love Stranger Things as well. Now, the album from which this is on, Hounds of Love, has 3 really good songs in it. Cloud Busting, Hounds of Love, and Running Up the Hill. And I was umming and ahhing about those 3 songs and deciding which one to put on this list, but I decided on Running Up That Hill. I decided that is the best one. Because it's great. Lyrically, it's a great song. The arrangement is really unique and quite progressive for the time. The instrumentation. Kate Bush was into her synthesizers, and you've got on this track, you've got a combination of electric drums, digital drums, drum machine, and a real drummer, which I think is really great because, of course, drum machines are great. They have, they can do things that real drummers can't do and achieve sort of, vibes that real drummers can't do. But there's also a limitation to what a drum machine can do, particularly when it comes to dynamics. Drum machines can't really go up and down a dynamic very easily, particularly in the 1980s. So some of the best examples, I think, of drum machines used in songs are when you've also got a real drummer there to allow for some dynamic play in the percussion part. There's actually another song coming up soon, which in the list, which also does that, has a drum machine part and a acoustic drum part. But anyway, this is Running Up That Hill, Kate Bush. And if anyone was under a rock last year, this song got to number 1 in the UK at least because of its use in Stranger Things. And it was good. It was, I don't know if you guys watch Stranger Things. I like Stranger Things. Good music in Stranger Things.
It doesn't hurt me. Do you wanna feel how it feels?
I can see in the chat someone's comparing Kate Bush and Björk, and I think that's a great comparison. Two artists who, despite being female, managed to not fall into the so often over-commercialised category that so many female pop stars find themselves in, largely due to the efforts of record labels. By the way, those tom hits that come in, those really like reverby tom hits, that's the acoustic drums, and the loop of drums is the drum machine. Absolute tune. Running up that hill, Kate Bush. I think whenever a song suddenly becomes like this week's big hype, as this song did last year with Stranger Things, it's very easy to kind of get overexposed to it very quickly and kind of get annoyed with it. It's a bit like what happened with Dreams, Fleetwood Mac, a couple of years ago when it was in that video with that guy drinking cranberry juice. And then suddenly everyone loves it because it's suddenly it's the new vintage thing to show that you like old music. But there's a reason these songs suddenly blow up, because they are timeless. They genuinely are timeless, because regardless of when they came out, all it took was them to be re-exposed to a modern audience, and then suddenly these people who haven't heard this before are like, this is amazing. Where has this been? So we need moments like that to remind people of older music. So that's number 18 on my list of the top 30 songs of the 1980s. Oh, look at that. There's a lovely typo up there. Wonder if I can get rid of that. Can I move that into the way? So if you hadn't noticed, it says The Book of Love by Magnetic Fields at the top of this. And that is because that was at number 17 last week in my in my 90s list, and I've used the same template, but obviously forgot to change that. So it's hidden now. You can't see it anymore. But just under here, it says The Book of Love by the Magnetic Fields. Great song, not from the 80s. But thankfully we have this little title here. Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears, from the album Songs from the Big Chair. Absolute classic of a song. Really, really fun rhythm. It's another one of those songs where we've got a drum machine, and that has almost the drum machine alone has allowed for the interesting rhythm, because it's got this really fun sort of polyrhythmic thing going on, where you've got this constant sense of like forward momentum. It's a really fun song, and it's one of those songs where even in the 80s, it sounds quite unique. There's not many other songs that sound like this song. And, to this day, it's got a sound that is all of its own. So, this is Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. When the song begins, See how long it takes you to latch onto the downbeat, onto the 1, because it's a little bit confusing at the beginning of the song.
Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. Even while we sleep, we will find you acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. Everybody wants to rule the world. It's my own design. It's my own remorse. Help me to decide. Help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule the world. There's a room where the light won't find you. Holding hands while the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you. So glad we've almost made it. So sad they had to fade it. Everybody wants to rule the world.
Charlie is asking in the chat why I've not got a music video up for this one. Sometimes I don't have a music video up because the music video doesn't actually sound as good. The music quality is lesser. Sometimes it also just doesn't work for some reason on Google Slides, which is what I'm using here to present. I think because of copyright reasons. So yeah, sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. But here we don't. Also, if you're wondering, this song came out in 1985. I usually have the year on screen, but here, because of my blunder with the title, I missed that out. Also, people were discussing the time signature of this. It's in 12/8. It's not that odd. You know, 12/8 is 4 beats in the bar, but those 4 beats have 3 beats in each one.
I can't stand this indecision. Married with a lack of vision. Everybody wants to say that you'll never need it. One headline, why believe it? Everybody wants to freedom and adventure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to.
So, of course, the title is not on screen because of my blunder, but that was, well, probably a song that doesn't actually need to be introduced. But that's Everybody Who Wants to Rule... No, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, not Everybody Who Wants to. Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. Let's move on, and hopefully I will be able to give you a title that is the right title. It is. Let me just reveal it. Here we are, the grand reveal. Do I Do? Stevie Wonder. Ah, there's another blunder. I can't believe that. Oh, I must have been asleep. Can you see the blunder? I don't think this song came out in 1994. If it did, it's not really, belonging here. But we're just gonna have to deal with it, aren't we? I guess I'm gonna pull it over again. I can't be looking at that. That's horrid. This is Do I Do by Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is, of course, most well known for his songs in the 1970s and the 1960s. But he did have some great songs in the 80s as well. One which I contemplated putting in this playlist was Master Blaster, which I believe came out in the 80s on, what's it called, Hotter Than July album. This, though, is Do I Do, which is a well-known Stevie song, but a lesser well-known Stevie song. I think it's got such a good groove. It's such a good feel-good song. And I've opted here for the 10-minute uncut version, not the kind of 4-minute version you often hear on the radio. Because can you believe that one of the bits that was cut out of this song, the radio edit version of this song, cuts out a solo by Dizzy Gillespie, the famous jazz trumpet player. Doesn't make it to the radio edit. You have to listen to this version to hear it. Also, at the very end of this version, Stevie Wonder starts rapping, which is very rare. I think this might be the only example of him rapping. But don't get your hopes up. He's not, even by his own confession, he's not actually a good rapper. But he starts rapping all the same. So I'm interested to know whether you guys recognise this song. This is Do I Do, Stevie Wonder.
When I see you on the street, my whole body gets weak. When you standing in the crowd, your love talks to me so loud. Girl, do I do what you do when I do my love to you? When I hear you on the phone, your sweet sexy voice turns my ear all the way on. Just a mention of your name seems to drive my head insane. Girl, do I do what you do when I do my love to you, baby? Yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dripping kisses full of love for you. Yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dripping kisses full of love for you. My life has been waiting for your love. My arms have been waiting for your love to arrive. My heart has been waiting, my soul anticipating your love.
As you can see, I decided to reveal the title so people can know what the song is if they're tuning in now.
I'm imagining the good love that will make. If to me, if I can do
And this song came out in
all
1982, if you're wondering.
just imagine how it's gonna feel when we hug and kiss. Sugar, do I do what you do when I do my love to you? Alright. Yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dripping kisses full of love for you. Yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dripping kisses full of love for you. My life has been waiting for your love. My arms have been waiting for your love to arrive. My heart has been waiting, my soul anticipating your love, your love, your love.
Amadeus, are you saying this song's in B major? Because that would make sense with the theory that Stevie Wonder likes to play in keys that involve all 5 black notes. Because obviously, as a blind person, it's physically easy to find those black notes on the keyboard. So, and B major has all 5 black notes, so that would make sense. I know that Sir Duke is in B major.
I have the pleasure to present on my album, Mr. Dizzy Gillespie. Loud!
I love with Stevie Wonder's harmonica playing. It's so instantly recognisable. Maybe because he's the only person in modern, but like contemporary music who plays chromatic harmonica like that. So when he played on that Eurythmics song, which I can't remember which Eurythmics song it is, like it must be an angel. He's on that, uncredited, but everyone knows it's him because of the way that the harmonica sounds.
Yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dip and kisses full of love for you. Yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dip and kisses full of love for you. My life has been waiting for your love, and my arms have been waiting for your love to arrive. My heart has been waiting, my soul anticipating your love, your love, your love, 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 love. Oh, I don't care how long it might take, 'cause I know the woman for me you I'll make, and I will not deny myself the chance of being part of what feels like the right romance. Girl, do I do? Oh, you do. When I do my love to you. Oh yeah. Oh, yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dip and kisses full of love for you. Yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dip and kisses full of love for you. Oh yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dip and kisses full of love for you. Oh, yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some honeysuckle chocolate dip and kisses full of love for you. Oh yes, I got some candy kisses for your lips. Yes, I got some watermelon honeysuckle chocolate dip and kisses full of love for you. Girl, I got some candy kisses for your loving, baby. Oh yeah. Do you want some candy? Do you want some honeysuckle? Do you want some chocolate chip and kisses for love for you? Woo! Girl, if you feel everything, you hurt me, so do you feel
You know, we were mentioning a minute ago about if this is in the key of B major, then you can use all the black notes. You might have heard that kind of like rolling down the keys sound just then. That was rolling down the black notes, something you could only do in a key where all black notes are in the key.
Do I do what you do when I do my love to you? Do I do what you do when I do my love to you? Do I do what you do when I do my love to you? when I do my love Nate. I know the record's about to end, but we just gonna play and play until it goes away. So if you don't like the groove, you can turn the record off. It won't cost you nothing but a penny, and you'll have a cough. I know I cannot rhyme, cause I ain't like an man, but I said, ha, 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 ha. I got down, and I said, now everybody's talking about the child, they say, everybody say so weak. Well, I know I got something for your body, and it's gonna good thing to me. Hey, you got the rhythm in the how talk, cause I Earl's playing by himself, man. Earl's playing by himself, man. Earl's playing by himself, man. Dennis playing by himself, man. Five, 4, 3, 2.
Whoa, what a way to end a song. It's almost like at the end there, I feel like they'd recorded X amount of backing track, and Stevie had, done everything he wanted to do. So he then started rapping, and then he kind of just got a bit bored, and then he just counted it down. And that's it. So you can kind of see why there's a radio edit of this, but I don't know, there's a few moments there, particularly the Dizzy Gillespie solo, which goes missed if you only have the radio edit. So that was number 16 on my list of the top 30 songs of the 1980s. Here's number 15. There was speculation earlier about whether the Police would make this list, and I saw some people mentioning this song, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, which, thankfully, I have actually put the right title and year there, so I can now reveal those kind of things that were blocking it out. It was kind of close for me with this one. I was considering Every Breath You Take, which is a great song. Really great. Like, I really love the atmosphere and vibe of Every Breath You Take. But this song is also great and full of energy and quite unique, really. There's not that many other songs that sound quite like this. Also, I really love this music video. You'll see there how I think it's Sting and Andy Summers are wearing hats. There's a moment in this video where they're dancing and then they're swapping each other's hats, and it's really satisfying. The vibe here, you can see it with like just how much fun they were having. So anyway, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic by the Police.
Start
I think the satisfying hat dance is coming up. I feel like with that music video, the people making the video were like, okay guys, we need you to like sing to the camera because we need more footage. So they just started pissing around in the control room. Maybe after a few beers, I don't know. I couldn't say. Yeah, great band, unique sound. One of those bands who very much had their own approach, combined different styles in a way that hadn't been done before. And, you know, broke some new ground, you know? Combined familiar elements, but in a new way. So that is Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic with the Police, and I think now it is time for the recap. I have obviously made another mistake here. Let's add that to the list. Because we have listened to number 15, and yet it's not here on the chart. There you go. Well, you know, we just listened to it. You haven't forgotten that quickly. So, for anybody who hasn't been here for the whole 2 hours that we've been doing this so far, here is the songs that you have missed. Of course, because this is going up to my favourite song of the 1980s, theoretically, it's going to get better and better with every song we play. There's still some very noteworthy artists who haven't made appearances yet. Just having a look at the chat. But anyway, there are the 15 songs to listen to so far, plus Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, which was number 15. Now for number 14, In the Air Tonight. I mentioned earlier that there's another song that has a drum machine part, but also a real drum part. This song, the majority of the song is pinned down percussively just by a preset on a drum machine. It was like, I can't remember the exact thing, but it was like, you know, when you had those basic drum machine things where you would have like samba, waltz, tango, 16-beat rock and roll, pop, that sort of like these genre-styled drum beats that were like pre-programmed into the machine and you could just turn them on. The beat we hear in the Air Tonight for the majority of the song is one of those. I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of those presets. And then, of course, iconically, the acoustic drums join in the latter half of the song. I think Phil Collins is one of those artists that gets a little bit of a hard time sometimes, probably because he did a lot of different styles of music, and some of it is definitely cheesier than others. Of course, the stuff he did with Genesis is amazing, and a lot of his solo career stuff is equally amazing to the Genesis stuff. He did, things like his Motown covers, like You Can't Hurry Love. I take or leave that. Like, they're fine. They're not great. They're not better than the originals. But this, In the Air Tonight, surely one of the best songs of the 1980s. And ahead of its time, I'd say, as well. Is this turned up? It is turned up. It's just a quiet song. Triporous is mentioning the Cadbury's advert. Anyone who's outside of the UK won't know what that was, but It was an advert where a gorilla played the iconic drum part from this song. And somehow that advertises chocolate. I don't know how. But fun fact, I actually know who the drummer was in the gorilla suit. Because he was one of the lecturers at my university. Yeah, counting down to that's true. I don't have any way of confirming he was the gorilla, although he did have a picture of the gorilla's head. I can hear some speculation about Peter Gabriel. I think you won't be disappointed. One of the finest moments of the 80s. And obviously all of the attention gets put on the drum fill, but this beat here is really cool as well because it hasn't got like a hat part, like a cymbal part, so it's really open. Loads of space between the kicks and snares. Zaron7, welcome to the chat. Yeah, this song, obviously everyone talks about the drum part, but this song is a great song. All things included, including the bass part. Yeah, I can see in the chat you're talking about how it has the drum loop and the acoustic drums, and I like that because the role of drums is often basically a loop because it's so foundational. But once you have something else taking care of the loop element, a drum machine, then the acoustic drums can now serve more the role of a percussionist, where they're augmenting the music. They're kind of playing more melodically, which I guess might have been what inspired the famous drum fill there, because he was augmenting an already solid rhythmic track. He could think a little bit outside the box, perhaps. I don't know. But anyway, that was number 14, In the Air Tonight, Phil Collins. Number 13, we're talking about drum machines. This is a very drum machine song. And I would say ahead of its time. About an hour and a half ago, we listened to Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart. And they mentioned how Ian Curtis, their lead singer, tragically committed suicide just before the band was about to make it big, really. And Joy Division then, as you can imagine, broke up. But not that long after, they reformed under a new name, and that new name was New Order. The thing is, they didn't just reform and kind of keep doing the same music. They were a new band, and their sound was very different. And, you know, as you heard with Joy Division, although they had synths, it was like a rock band, right? But New Order, particularly on this song, are very electronic-y and synthy and very far removed from the rock music of Joy Division at this point. Blue Monday, an absolute classic of a song. One of the things I love about the song is how long the intro is. You'll notice in a minute that the intro is a couple minutes long, if not longer. I assume this song is well known beyond the UK. If not, if anyone doesn't know this song, I'll be shocked. But maybe it's one of those songs that's not big in the US. I don't know. Any Americans in the audience, let me know if you do or do not know this song. This is Blue Monday, New Order. It has been confirmed in the chat that this song is well known in America, thankfully. Also, you might notice this animation looks a bit like a floppy disk when it comes out, you know, like a computer floppy disk. That's a reference to the fact that when the single was sold, you know, when you bought it in the shop, it came in a sleeve that made it look like a floppy disk, and that floppy disk sleeve had a disc of metal on it, like a floppy disk would, but that disc of metal on the single cover made the single more expensive to manufacture than a regular single. So expensive, actually, that with every single sold, the record company actually lost money because it cost that much to make the physical packaging. Style over substance, I guess. Rory got the reference to the word painting. Word painting, if you didn't know, is when the lyrics are reflected in the music. Monday, New Order. A song that's almost an instrumental, which has a bit of vocal. And one of the, although the sound now seems quite typical for the 80s, I think this is one of those songs that kind of set the sound of the 80s. It was pushing that electronic sound. I think this song was inspired by some of the work of Giorgio Moroder, who, for example, did "I Feel Love," which was very much ahead of its time with the way it treated synthesizers and electronic instruments. And this was kind of an extension of that, getting into what now is so commonplace, that music can be programmed and electronic and humanless to a certain extent. It doesn't have to be performed; it just gets played back, which can be great and can also be sometimes a bit boring. But in this example, it's great. Anyway, something very different. Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes by Paul Simon. Paul Simon, of course, is most well known for being half of Simon and Garfunkel in the 1960s. Simon and Garfunkel, one of my absolute favourite artists of all time. But Paul Simon, his songwriting ability continued to amaze after Simon and Garfunkel disbanded at the end of the 60s. And his work in the 80s saw him very much reinvent his sound. He went to South Africa with his studio engineer and worked with a bunch of South African musicians, and that massively influenced the sound of his new album, Graceland, which kind of revitalized his career to a certain extent. The most well-known song from this album is "You Can Call Me Al," but this is my personal favourite song from the album, where you can very much hear that South African influence. If you don't know this album, if you haven't listened to this album, you definitely should. It's one of the best albums of the 1980s. This is Diamonds on the Sole of Her Shoes by Paul Simon.
She's a rich girl, she don't try to hide it. Diamonds on the soles of her shoes.
MLV4, welcome to the stream.
He's a poor boy, empty as a pocket, empty as a pocket.
And Oscar, welcome as well.
To lose. Sing ta-na-na, ta-na-na-na. She got diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Ta-na-na, ta-na-na-na. She got diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Diamonds on the
I like how this
soles
is
of
almost like a mini song at the beginning.
Diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Diamonds on the soles of her
Concludes
shoes.
here. And then you get the true song here. It's like a little introduction.
People say she's crazy, she got diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Well, that's one way to lose these walking blues. Diamonds on the soles of your shoes. She was physically forgotten, but then she slipped into my pocket with my car keys. She said, "You've taken me for granted because I please you, wearing these diamonds." And I could say, ooh, as if everybody knows what I'm talking about. As if everybody here would know exactly what I was talking about. I'm talking about diamonds on the soles of her shoes. She makes the sign of a teaspoon, he makes the sign of a wave. The poor boy changes clothes and he puts on aftershave to compensate for his ordinary shoes. And she said, "Honey, take me dancing," but they ended up by sleeping in a doorway by the bodegas and the lights on over Broadway, wearing diamonds on the soles of their shoes. And I could say, ooh, and everybody here would know what I was talking about. I mean, everybody here would know exactly what I was talking about. I'm talking about diamonds. People say I'm crazy, I got diamonds on the soles of my shoes, yeah. Well, that's one way to lose these walking blues. Diamonds on the soles of my shoes. Ta-na-na-na, 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 ta-na-na-na.
Diamond and the Soles of Her Shoes, Paul Simon. One of many good tracks from that album. If you haven't listened to it, you should. Let's move on. Number 11 on the list is Golden Brown by the Stranglers. So I've talked about the Stranglers before. I feel like they're not as well known as they could be. This is perhaps their most well known song. In the late 70s, they had some really good punk music, but not like the sort of really rough around the edges punk of like the Sex Pistols. It was more refined. It had almost like a Doors edge to it, with some keyboards and some really good production and some really good sounding growling bass guitars. The stuff they did in the 80s ventured even more into the realms of keyboards. Golden Brown is a great example of that. Amazing keyboard playing by, I think his name was Dave Greenfield. I think I'm going to double check that. Does anyone in the chat remember the name of the Stranglers keyboard player? I'm just Googling it because I really should know his name if I'm going to say the next bit of the story. Dave Greenfield. It was Dave Greenfield. Cool. So, yeah, tragically, Dave Greenfield died of COVID during 2020. And he was a big influence on me because the Stranglers were a big influence on me when I first started playing keyboard, because when I first started playing keyboard, everyone I knew, all of the people around me playing music, were playing in rock bands. They were playing guitars and basses and drums. And being a keyboard player, fitting into a rock band environment is quite difficult because you have to kind of fight for space, and to know what to do to find that space is difficult. So any example of a rock band that had a keyboard player, and not only a keyboard player, but a keyboard player who played solos and had big prominent parts, they were always big influences on me. So the Doors were a good example, and also the Stranglers were a good example because the keyboard playing is front and center on many of their songs, including this one. This song has a sound unlike any other song I think has ever been in the charts. It's truly a unique arrangement, in my opinion. Not just harpsichord, but like digital harpsichord. How many other songs have that combined with all of the other elements and the funny time signature that goes on, which I'll see in the chat if anyone can tell me what the odd time signature is, or at least the unusual time signature is in this song.
Texture like sun lays me down. With my mind she runs throughout the night. No need to fight, never a frown with golden brown.
Amadeus is saying 13-8.
Every time,
good guess.
just like the last.
Andrew, similarly, good guess. Andrew is closer, he's pretty much there.
Never a frown with golden.
So here comes the odd bit again. So it's going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it settles back into 3.
Golden brown, fine temptress. Through the ages, she's heading west.
Yes, Amadeus, you're right. The 13. You get 13 in total from the odd section. And yeah, Charlie the Explorer, you got the same idea of just adding it up differently. That's the thing with songs that change time signature. There's often various ways you can interpret them, different ways you can count them. But as long as it makes sense, it makes sense. Amadeus is asking if I played this song often. It was less that I played this song, it was more that the Stranglers in general were an example of me of how I could fit into a rock band setting with original material done by the band. You know, when it's a rock band, how do you find your place as a keyboard player? And that's kind of the lesson I learned from the Stranglers. Gordon Brown, Stranglers. The story goes that this song didn't get to number one because the BBC banned it. At least in the UK, before the 1990s, before the internet, the BBC had quite a lot of power in the sense that a lot of people consumed music via BBC platforms, and therefore, if the BBC decided that a song wasn't, appropriate to be broadcast, then it would suddenly lose out on being on this big platform. And people say that the reason the Golden Brown didn't get to number one is because it was on its way up to number one, and then the bassist revealed that the song is about heroin, and the BBC said, well, we can't have a song about heroin on the radio. So they, even though the lyrics are very cryptic, he'd confirmed it. So the song was banned and then didn't get to number one. However, there's other songs that got banned and then almost arguably got to number one because they got banned. So, for example, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Relax, got banned, and it was almost the fact that it got banned which made it kind of really curious to people, because people were wondering, why is it being banned? What's so weird about this song? Relax, don't do it when you got to come. What's weird about that? So I think a lot of people actually bought that record to find out what was so weird about it. By the way, Frankie Goes to Hollywood are an artist who I did consider putting on this list, but I'll tell you now, they didn't make the cut. They would have probably made the cut if it was a top 50. Definitely in the top 50. Maybe not in the top 40. But this is neither of those. This is a top 30, and we have just entered the top 10. So with that, we're going to have a bit of a recap. This is all of the songs we've listened to so far. We've been streaming now for 2.5 hours, so I wonder if anyone's been here since the beginning. If anybody remembers us listening to Hold Me Now by the Thompson Twins or Xanadu, let me know in the chat, because you've been here a long time. Major Ched Bun 42, welcome to the chat, and I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. Katie HS was here for Xanadu. Very good. You've been here a long time. Yeah, try Porous, you missed it. Roy was here for Dear God, so that was a long time ago now. Is Michael Jackson on the list? He's one of those artists I did consider. I've given it away now. He's not on the list. He would have been in the top 50, definitely. Something from the Billie Jean album or Off the Wall would have made the cut, but not on this list today, I'm afraid. Let's move on. We're in the top 10 now. What's going to be number 10? Well, David Bowie. Bowie is one of those artists, a bit like what I was saying with Fleetwood Mac earlier, who kind of reinvented themselves. Of course, Bowie, his true golden era was the 70s, but he had a very, very strong second wind in the 80s. And this is my favourite 80s track from Bowie. And this track obviously actually does reference one of his songs from the 70s. It references Space Oddity. Although actually Space Oddity came out in 1969, but you know what I mean. Ashes to Ashes, David Bowie. Listen out for the unusual phrase length. I did a video a while ago. It was less viewed, so I don't know if everyone here would have seen it. It was about irregular length phrases. So if you think in most music, we have chunks of 4 bars. So 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars. You get a lot of 4-bar loops. But Ashes to Ashes doesn't abide by that. It has, depending on how you count it, a 3-bar loop. Or you could say a 6-bar loop. But the point is, it loops in an unusual place. which gives it quite a interesting sound, ear-catching, and also momentum, in my opinion, because we wind up kind of progressing in the song quicker than you would if you were doing 4-bar phrases. That said, this version I'm about to play you skips the intro, and the intro usually has quite irregular phrase length to it, but those irregular phrases do come up later in the song, so you will have an opportunity long after his initial breakthrough, but completely reinventing his sound into a sound that really, this is 1980. Is it really pushing forward? I often thought that, I used to think that Heroes, the David Bowie song, I used to think that came out in the 80s because of the way it sounded, but that came out in the 70s. He was just really pushing the envelope with this stuff. So we are now into the top 10. Here is number 9. I made a reference earlier that a Beatle might turn up. And there he is in the middle of the screen with the play button over his mouth. That's George Harrison in the Travelling Wilburys. I'm hoping you guys know who the Travelling Wilburys are. If you don't, you are in for a treat, because the Travelling Wilburys is the greatest super band ever. It's basically the ultimate dad band. Every artist that your dad likes, all now dads themselves in a band together. I don't know if we'll ever see a band like this again. George Harrison, Jeff Lynne of ELO, Tom Petty, Roy Orbison, and Bob Dylan, all in one band. That's this band. It's insane. Personally, I think the Travelling Wilburys ultimately have 2 really good songs. And this is one of them. I had to choose between the 2. The other one is Handle with Care. Absolute tune. But personally, I just have a special place in my heart for this song, End of the Line. Such a good song. Try and listen out for each different Wilburys little moment in the sun during this song, because they all have their little moment to sing a line. End of the Line. Travelling Wilburys.
Well, it's alright, riding around in the breeze. Well, it's alright, if you live the life you please. Well, it's alright, doing the best you can. Well, it's alright, as long as you lend a hand. You can sit around and wait for the phone to ring, waiting for someone to tell you everything. Sit around and wonder what tomorrow will bring. Maybe a diamond ring. Well, it's alright, even if they say you're wrong. Well, it's alright, sometimes you gotta be strong. Well, it's alright, as long as you got somewhere to lay. Well, it's alright, every day is Judgment Day. Maybe somewhere down the road away, you'll think of me and wonder where I am these days. Maybe somewhere down the road when somebody plays Purple Haze. Well, it's alright, even when push comes to shove. Well, it's
If you're wondering why Roy Orbison isn't singing right now, and why there's a guitar rocking in a rocking chair, it's because he sadly passed away before they filmed this music video.
alright, we're going to the end of the line. Don't have to be ashamed of the car I drive. I'm just glad to be here, happy to be alive. And it don't matter if you're by my side, I'm satisfied. Well, it's alright, even if you're old and gray. Well, it's alright, you still got something to say. Well, it's alright, remember to live and live. Well, it's alright, the best you can do is forgive. Well, it's alright,
the Line, the Travelling Wilburys, the greatest dad rock band that will ever be. How can you top that lineup? Imagine if Paul was in it too. No, that would spoil it. Paul would just spoil it. Anyway, end of the line. We're into the last few now. Here is Where the Streets Have No Names by U2. U2, a bit like Phil Collins, who we were talking about earlier, sometimes get a bad rap. I think probably because of their public persona, and by there I mean Bono. Some people don't particularly like U2. But particularly back in the 80s, they were at the height of their powers, and this album is undeniably a great album. Such a good album. I absolutely love this song. I think this in this song you can hear a lot of the future music by bands like Coldplay happening. This album was also co-produced by Brian Eno, the famous ambient music producer, who was also the synth player for Roxy Music. Roxy Music were another band who were considered for this list, by the way, but didn't quite make the cut. I'm a big fan of Brian Eno's ambient music, and you can hear his influence in this track. Beautiful piece of music, and I actually was lucky enough to... Oh wait, there's like some stupid security pop-up in the corner. Let's get rid of that. I was actually lucky enough last year to go to... I did a big road trip of America on the West Coast, and we were staying near Joshua Tree. This album, of course, is named after that place, that national park, Joshua Tree National Park. And we listened to this album quite a lot whilst we were driving around there. And it's a good place. It's a good place to listen to this album. But anyway, Where the Streets Have No Names, U2 from the Joshua Tree, 1987. Also, The Edge and his use of delay pedals inspired an entire generation of people to use delay pedals. chat. The Epic 777. Yeah, that is another great song from the album, Red Hill Mining Town. But yeah, for me, the atmosphere of this song is just amazing, and the lyrics as well are about, of this song, are about the troubles in Northern Ireland, or Ireland in general, and about how the street you lived on could define, what side of the conflict you were on. Hence why it would be nice to think of a place where the streets didn't have homes. Celtic Delta, thanks for watching. You'll be able to catch up with the rest on YouTube at some point. Also, have you noticed how we've gone into 3-4 now? We were in 4-4, but we're now in 3-4. The streets have no names. You too. Really getting into the depths of this list now. We've only got a few left to go. If you are just joining us, this is my top 30 songs of the 1980s, and we are now looking at number 7. I mentioned there was an artist who just about appears twice in this list. There's only one artist who manages this, I think, off the top of my head. Unless you count Jeff Lynne, who was both in Travelling Wilburys and on Xanadu. So I guess, yeah, we do count Jeff Lynne. But this is another artist doing that same feat. We had David Bowie with Ashes to Ashes, but here is David Bowie again with one of my absolute favourite Queen songs of all time, Under Pressure. Such a beautiful song. So powerful in its performance and emotion and its message. It's just, Queen was so good at writing really relatable messages into their lyrics. Things like, we will rock you, we are the champions, stuff where anyone can kind of get it. And this is another one of those, but with a far more important and serious message than those other ones I just mentioned. Amazing performance from everyone here. Queen at all times were a band where all 4 members made big contributions to the music. And once they had David Bowie in there as well, they had 5 great minds all working on one song. Also, I heard that, I'm not sure how true this is, but obviously one of the most famous features of this song is the bass line, John Deacon's bass line. And apparently they were like jamming this song, then they went for lunch. And when they came back, Deaky couldn't quite remember the bass line. And it was I think it might be Roger Taylor who remembered it. It was someone else in the band who recalled what it was. So without that, maybe we never would have got the classic bass line of this song. And we definitely wouldn't have got Ice Ice Baby. So, I guess it wouldn't have all been bad. Under Pressure, Queen, David Bowie. One of my absolute favourite sing about. Love is such an old-fashioned thing that dares us to care about the people on the edge of the night. It's just beautiful. Under Pressure, Queen and Bowie. All right. Something from the other end of the 80s. We just had 81, I think. Now we're at the other end of the decade. This band, for the longest time, I didn't realise were effectively from the 80s. They have a sound which is very, indicative of the 90s, but it's because they were ahead of the curve. They were a big influence on the Britpop sound and the Manchester sound that we got in the early 90s. The Stone Roses, an incredibly influential band who only really had one true album. They had 2 albums, but they played a big part in influencing bands like Oasis. And this is a fantastic piece of music. I actually think last week when we were doing the week before last when we were doing the 2000s version of the stream, my top 30 songs of the 2000s. I mentioned that I got introduced to the song Mixomatosis by Radiohead because of a FIFA game, FIFA 2004, I think it was. I'm pretty sure on that same soundtrack was this song. So I got also introduced to this song via that soundtrack. Not really sure why this song was on that soundtrack, because I think they usually would play songs from that year. And, Mixomatosis made sense. It came out that year, but this definitely didn't. But anyway, this is Fool's Gold, the Stone Roses. Let me know in the chat if you know this song. Got a few songs left of this list, 5 more after this one. So if there's anything you've not seen yet and you think might be in that top 5, maybe let me know in the chat. Brothers in Arms has been suggested. Come On Eileen's been suggested. Painted Love, Click on Me. Yes, I think it's been mentioned. Prince has been mentioned. All good suggestions. Sapphoros, you missed Golden Brown. Yes, we have had Golden Brown. Money for Nothing and Owner of a Lonely Heart are both songs I considered for this list. And at one point they were both actually in the playlist. How I go about making these playlists is I just start by filling it with more than 30 songs, and then have to cull it down 2:30. And Brothers in Arms / Money for Nothing by Dire Straits, they were two songs I was considering, and Owner of a Lonely Heart I was considering, but they didn't quite make it. Oscar is suggesting Beds Are Burning. Beds Are Burning is a funny song because it's not very well known in the UK, that song. And I remember I played a gig for a birthday party for some Australians, and they had that song on. They put it on the DJ set afterwards, and everyone was going nuts for it. And I didn't recognise it. My friend said, "This is like their, this is like obviously a massive hit, but not one that we know." And it's like, imagine there being songs, imagine some massive hits like Living on a Prayer, but just not knowing them, existing in the world where that song exists, but not having any familiarity with it. And I think that's an example of one. I'm saying in the chat that Beds Are Burning was a hit in the UK. Maybe it was. I don't know. I had not heard it once in my life until about 4 years ago. Maybe I just managed to avoid it. But anyway, let's move on into the top 5. I think maybe we have a recap first. We do. So here is all of the things that we have listened to so far. Is there anyone here left who still remembers Hold Me Now, Thompson Twins? Probably not. Xanadu, maybe. Dear God, maybe. I don't know. We've been streaming a long time. 3 hours now. This is the longest one yet, I think. And we've still got 5 songs to go. Before I forget, is Charlie the Explorer still in the chat? Or still watching at least? Stingray is still here. Was it Stingray? Were you the one who was here for Xanadu? I can't remember. Or Dear God. But Charlie the Explorer, I don't know if he's still here now. I'll mention it anyway. Alan Parsons Projects has been suggested by Wolf Ruin. I considered that actually, but I haven't put it in. I think Charlie the Explorer might have gone, but why I mention him is tomorrow a video is coming out on my channel, which is a Beatles quiz. I've done like a bunch of Beatles quizzes before where historically I've done one where you were played like a split second of a Beatles song and you had to guess what it was. I also did one where you were played a Beatles song but in reverse and you had to guess what it was. With the aid of Charlie the Explorer, tomorrow I'm doing one where it's the drum part, just the drums of a Beatles song, and you have to recognise what the song is from that. And Charlie, he is a drummer and he has recorded these drum parts and put it together for me very kindly. So if you're interested in that, check out the channel tomorrow. There he is. He's still here. I'm glad. So yeah, I'm sure it's that will be enjoyed by all. I'm looking forward to you guys seeing that. But anyway, let's get into the top 5 now. I don't know if I saw that. Maybe I saw one person in the chat mentioning this band. This band are one of my favourite bands of the 80s. I know that their sound can be a little bit divisive. I think some people find their sound a little hard to get into because it has got that sort of, I don't know, kind of like not cheesy, but unusual 80s production to it. It's a sound. It's definitely not like rock music, but I love it. I also know that Morrissey is quite a divisive character, but it's one of those times where you've got to separate the art from the artist. Johnny Marr, the guitarist of this band, was such a creative guitar player. He came up with some really interesting guitar parts, and that coupled with the unique vocal and lyrical style of Morrissey, the lead singer, resulted in some great music. This is my favourite song of theirs. The guitar on this is just, it doesn't really even sound like a guitar, and just the entire audio experience of this song is so immersive. I love the production on this song. This is How Soon Is Now by the Smiths.
particular. You shut your mouth, how can you say I go about things the wrong way? I am human and I need to be loved, just like everybody else does. If you'd like to go, you could meet somebody who really loves you. So you go and you stand on your own, and you leave on your own, and you go home and you cry and you
Tribe Chorus is asking whether this video will be available as a VOD, i.e., on demand after I've streamed it. I most likely will make it available, but it will almost certainly be very much muted. There'll be any time I'm playing music like this will be muted, mostly, with a few exceptions. The easier way to watch it back after today is on YouTube on my second channel, so subscribe to that if you haven't already done so, because what I do on the second channel is YouTube's policy of like blocking and muting songs is more flexible, so I can usually get it on the second channel and get it on YouTube with only a couple of the songs being muted, whereas on Twitch it will be most of the songs get muted on the VOD.
But when exactly do you mean? See, I've already waited too long, and all my hope is gone.
Love that guitar part. Completely drenched in effects. Now, the Smiths. Yeah, I saw some people discussing in the chat why Morrissey is a divisive character. He certainly has some overt political views, some of which, are perfectly fine. Some of which are very anti-immigrant, weird, quite old-fashioned opinions on nationalism. And even when, old-fashioned is quite, light of me to say, because even in older times, it wasn't acceptable. It just was more common. But there you go. How Soon Is Now, The Smiths. Not their only good song. If you don't know The Smiths, check them out. They've got loads of great songs. Number 4, another song which I cannot believe was the 80s. I was saying with the Stone Roses. I always thought the Stone Roses were 90s, but they were just one of those artists that were ahead of their time enough that actually they were in the decade before. And the Pixies are another great example of that. Massive influence on a lot of the music that happened in the 90s, particularly Radiohead. One of Radiohead's biggest influences is Pixies. Pixies' wider catalogue of music I find quite hit and miss. As you can see, I'm a big fan of this song. I'm also a big fan of Gigantic. That's a great song. And there's a few other ones here and there. Here Comes Your Man and a few other ones which are great songs. This is a fantastic piece of music. And to think it came out in 88. Yeah, there were a few other bands around at this time, like Sonic Youth, I think, were just about in action, making this sort of music, quite proto-grunge, for lack of a better word. Noisy, rough around the edges rock. But the Pixies were definitely breaking new ground. So here is Where Is My Mind at the time. It's the Pixies. Number 4 on my list of the top 30 songs of the 1980s. We really are into my favourite songs here. There was lots of talk about Peter Gabriel in the chat earlier, but everyone was saying Sledgehammer. Oh look, Charlie the Explorer's even making the guess. Yeah. What, out of interest, Charlie, did you think that because you managed to clock the album art on the blurred out image, or were you just sort of taking a guess? Because I've said before that Peter Gabriel's album So, which came out in the 80s, is one of my favourite albums ever. Very much one of my favourite albums of the decade. And on that album you have loads of great songs, including Sledgehammer, but also Big Time. I really love Big Time. It has a great lyrical theme. It has, like many songs on this album, a very unique sound to it. Very fun, but also kind of dark at the same time. And the music video is just quite creepy. So I thought, we need to watch the music video. I think it was animated by Aardman, who are the same people who did Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run and all that stuff. And anything with plasticine, claymation, is simultaneously really interesting, really impressive, but also really creepy. Big Time, Peter Gabriel. Hi there.
Hi there. I'm on my way, I'm making it. I've got to make it show, yeah. So much larger than life. I'm gonna watch it grow.
clarify, I said it was Aardman. It's not Aardman who did this music video, but it's the same, similar style. It's a different studio, not Aardman.
As I kneel in the big church, I'm on my way, I'm making it. I've got to make it show, yeah. So much larger than life. I'm gonna watch it growing. My parties have all the big names, and I greet them with the widest smile. Tell them how my life is one big adventure, and always they're amazed when I show them round the house to my bed. I'll hang it late like a mountain range, with a snow white pillow for my big fat head. And my heaven will be a big heaven, and I will walk through the front door. I'm on my way, I'm making it. I've got to make it show, yeah. So much larger than life. I'm gonna watch it growing. My car's getting bigger. My house getting bigger. My eyes getting bigger. And my mouth. My belly's getting bigger. And my bank account. Look at my circumstance. And a bunch of my
Big time. Peter Gabriel. Lots of people were talking about the other great songs on this album, and they're all correct. So is a fantastic album. If you haven't listened to Peter Gabriel, so you should do that. All right, 2 songs left. Number 2 in this list is a song that I have seen predicted by a few people, and it is Talking Heads, Once in a Lifetime. Another song where I was surprised by how early in the 80s it was. It was very much one of those songs that were setting the trend for things that would come later. The song is from their album Remain in Light, which personally I don't get on with very well. I bought Remain in Light on vinyl because I was so confident I'd like it. Because it's regarded as a great album, and it's got Once in a Lifetime on it, which is one of my favourite songs ever. But the rest of the album doesn't do an awful lot for me. It's just a bit too jammy and like vibey, and there's not really any decent songs to latch onto. But this is certainly an exception. This is a fantastic song. Amazing performance from David Byrne on the vocals. Apparently this song was largely influenced by televangelists. So a televangelist, to anyone who isn't an American, because we don't really have them, at least in the UK, is people like an evangelist. Evangelist is a Christian preacher, right? So you can imagine a over animated, charismatic preacher, and a televangelist is someone doing that on TV, just to make it more wild. And the bit in this song about sort of under the water, over the water, that's all about that's channeling what David Byrne was seeing when he was watching some of these televangelists on TV. The sort of slight, kind of entranced state these people go into when they're preaching, which some people seem to believe is the Holy Spirit talking through them. In my opinion, it's just Ego and Madness. But anyway, Once in a Lifetime, Talking. What do you think people think? Zodiac's just joined the chat. Welcome to the... This Must Be the Place is a great song, by the way. Just going back to talking about Talking Head songs. Mayor McFrumplis is suggesting Michael Jackson. Lemon Fire Brigade is suggesting The Cure. There's talk of Prince. Cure. The thing I've often... I don't know how true you guys think this is. I've had the Smiths, so therefore I can't have The Cure. It's like they're the two 80s kind of alternative indie bands which people are into. There is, like, you know, it's not like I don't like The Cure. The Cure have some great songs, but they're not my pick. There was one person, I think it was actually on a YouTube comment, because I've posted on YouTube that I'm doing the stream right now, that, you know, people can come across from YouTube. I don't know if anyone here has done that. I think on a comment on the post I made about this stream, somebody mentioned the band, which I'm about to show you. And I think they're the only band who have done this. R.E.M. I see people mentioning. R.E.M. I considered, but didn't make the cut. They were in the shortlist, but they didn't make the final cut. Madness I considered, didn't make the cut. No, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you right now. It's Crowded House. We had a Crowded House song in the previous stream. Crowded House, they're one of those bands who... I don't particularly love their entire back catalogue, but they have about 10 solid gold classics, which I could listen to all day. Which means, actually, by default, their greatest hits collection is a great listen. They have so many great songs, this band. If you don't know Crowded House, they are a Australian/New Zealand band who I think almost, they were doing the sort of like almost the Britpoppy thing before Britpop, where they were channeling a bit of the 60s music, but also putting in their own thing. This isn't as in that ilk as other music of theirs. This is a very 80s sounding song, but some of the stuff they did in the 90s, they were kind of Britpopping a little bit before Britpop. But anyway, this is Don't Dream It's Over, probably the most well-known song by Crowded House. It's a beautiful piece of music, and if you don't know Crowded House, you should check them out. This is Crowded House. Don't Dream It's Over, because it almost is. This is the last song on the list. Yes, Amadeus. Very sus song.
There's a battle ahead. Many battles are lost, but you never see the end of the road while you're traveling with me. Hey now, don't dream it's over. Hey now, when the world comes in, they come.
The Ivory joining the chat. How have you not heard the song? I'm privileged to introduce you to the song.
Now I'm towing my car. There's a hole in the roof. My possessions are causing me suspicion, but there's no proof. In the paper today, tales of war and waste, but you turn right over to the TV page. Hey now, don't dream it's over. Hey now, when the world comes in, they come to build a wall between us. We know they won't win.
Well, the Ivory, even if you are a uncultured Gen Z, I wasn't alive for this music, So there's no excuses. But no, I have pleasure to introduce you to Crowded House. Admittedly, it was my parents who introduced me to them, so I had a free pass. I also saw them support Paul McCartney in Hyde Park about 10 years ago. Fun.
Shadows ahead, barely clearing the roof. Get to know the feeling of liberation and release. Hey now,
Morphine. I don't know why it's in mono, probably because of the music video.
where the world comes in, they come to build a wall between us. No, they won't win. Don't let them
And with that, it is over. My list of the top 30 songs of the 1980s is concluded with Don't Dream It's Over by Crowded House. An absolute gem of a song by a great band. And here we have the list. For anybody who hasn't been here the entire time, here is what you have missed. This stream will go up on YouTube on my second channel, and in the description of that will be this playlist, which you should be able to get at that point. Although it might not be on YouTube for a little while, because I have what I have to do is I upload the stream to my second channel, and then YouTube decides which songs in it actually can't be in it, and will therefore block the video. And then I have to go through and manually unblock each one that's going to be blocked. And that process, you click, okay, unblock. No, as in like, I don't mean unblock. I mean cut out, mute. I click it for one song, and it doesn't let you do it for all of them. You have to do it one by one. So I spend like almost a week getting it on YouTube. But there you go. So if you're wondering why it's not there next week, it's because I'm still cutting out all the songs that aren't allowed by the Song Police. But anyway, it was a pleasure doing that. I really enjoy this format, and as you might have already guessed, I will be back doing this again very soon. I'm going to have the 70s next week, which, as I mentioned earlier, is very difficult for me because the 70s is basically my favourite era of music. It's very difficult to narrow it down to just 30 songs. And of course, after that, we'll have the 60s, and then we'll have the 50s, and I think I won't go to the 40s. I think I probably couldn't. I'm struggling to find enough songs for the 50s that I genuinely enjoy and know and like and listen to regularly. So the 40s would be next to impossible. But I am going to circle back round and do the 2020s, because although we are only a third of the way through the 2020s, I'm going to do maybe a shorter list, maybe a 15 songs of the 2020s, or maybe just 10, because then that would be a third of what we're doing here. I don't know. That would be a pretty short stream. But check out the schedule on Twitch. On my schedule on Twitch, I have all my streams in there, letting you know what's coming up in the future. Before we wrap up here, is there any songs in particular here that you were expecting to see and didn't see? Odd Job Norris, I see you just joined the chat. You're very welcome for the trip down memory lane. I was just reading the chat here. You could do favourite songs of each year in the future. I did consider that, actually. Once I actually started putting together a list of my favourite album from each year. But the thing is, it gets quite frustrating because there's some years where multiple great albums came out, and there's other years where nothing to me particularly came out that was any good or any special, particularly special. Big Country is a band I've never really got into, and maybe I should give them more of a listen. Michael Jackson, yeah, I definitely consider Michael Jackson. As I said before, if it was a top 50, he'd definitely be in it. Prince, once again, Prince did make the shortlist. He just didn't make this list. I was going to include When Doves Cry, but it didn't quite make it. And Run DMC, I like Run DMC. Another example of early rap music, but no, not quite making it today. But there we go. My top 30 songs of the 1980s. Thank you so much for watching. As I said, check out the schedule for when the next one will be up. I think it's Wednesday that I'll be next Wednesday that I'll be doing the top 30 songs of the 1970s. But on Sunday I'm doing some other stream. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Oh yeah, I remember what it is now. And this is actually good that I'm mentioning it now. On Sunday, I am doing a stream where I will be giving feedback on your original music on the stream. We'll be watching it here together, and I'll give you some feedback. So if you have some original music which you would like me to listen to on that stream and give feedback to me, then let me know. I think the best way for you to get that music to me is to send it to my email, because otherwise I'll just lose track of it if it's in this chat. So what I'm doing right now, just checking I spelled that right, is put my email address in the chat. If it goes by too fast in the chat, then you can find it on my YouTube or my website. Yeah, I will be trying to, I need some, yes, Hotmail. You say Hotmail. The thing is, people have, over the years, I've often thought, I should get like a proper domain, a domain email address. But the problem is that means that you are forever tied to that domain address, because you can't change your email, If you change your email address, then all your contacts will now not be able to reach you. But for example, I used to use the domain address, my website used to be davidbennettmusic.com, and then I changed it to davidbennettpiano.com. But if I had made my email address at David Bennett Piano or at David Bennett Music or whatever, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But anyway, good old reliable Hotmail. Send me a email with your original music. It can be cover songs you've reinterpreted perhaps, but ideally I want original music, and I'll give some feedback to it live on Twitch. Thank you again for watching. Have a very good evening or afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're in, or maybe morning if you're in Australia or something like that. Thanks for watching. See you again.